Alkemia's grand city of Krasis calls upon you. The Circle of Seers prophesies, the one to synthesize the crest of creation shall become the next grand alchemist. Guide one of 6 up-and-coming alchemists in their quest to bring forth the crest by uncovering its long-lost recipe. Journey outside of Krasis to explore the bountiful foraging fields of Alkemia. Scavenge through the foraging fields to collect the reagents necessary to synthesize new and powerful items, leading you ever closer to uncovering the crest's recipe. The crest awaits a worthy alchemist to wield its power. Destiny's recipe has called for you. Will you answer?
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Phat Games podcast. On this episode, Gary and I, as always, have some very special and amazing guests. It is our first time hosting some tabletop game developers, and also our first time having 5 people on at the same time. I would like to welcome the wonderful people from Kinsoul Studio. Let's start with some introductions. Matt and Adam, why don't you guys go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Matt.
I'm Adam.
We are 2 of the 5 of Kinsoul, and we handle a lot of the business, logistics, financials, conventions, project management, you name it. We're all kind of fluid, so we all do a lot of things, but that's what we focus on a lot.
Logistics and shipping stuff is more my game, but I also help out with conventions or any sort of thing he wants to throw my way.
It's true.
Exciting. Eric and Jeff?
Hello, I'm Eric, and
I'm Jeff.
And we are numbers 3 and 4 of Kinsoul Studio. So I mostly work with the mid-stage when we're designing games, as in I do a lot of play testing and I do a lot of work with mechanics, etc.
And I tend to do a lot of the earlier stage stuff. So I'm generally concept design. After we kind of figure out what we want to do, I'm usually figuring out characters and powers, etc. And then I also usually work close with the artist just to make sure that gets done.
All right, Jordan.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm number 5, and my position is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I mostly just do development, although I also help out at conventions and do the schmoozing and selling at those things. But yeah, I work on the beginning and middle and end of development of games. Although so far with Kinsoul, I only have the one game, Steepseers, because I'm the newest member of the crew.
Great. So I first met Matt, Jeff, Adam, and Eric. I think that was in 2015, or was it 2016? One of those 2 years.
Yeah.
At the first FlameCon. But instead of talking about how I met you guys, how did you guys all meet one another? How did Kinsoul kind of become its thing?
It's an interesting mix of things.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a long story.
Okay.
There's a lot of long stories. I'll try to sum it up as best as I can. So Jeff and I were friends, like just kind of online AIM friends, hashtag 2000s, right? And we were friends online for the longest time and just were talking about games and whatever. And eventually we ended up meeting, in person like 10 or 12 or plus years ago. I don't even know. And, we've just been great friends the whole time and ever since. Jeff came with Eric because they are a couple. And then I came with Adam because we are a couple. And so the 4 of us sort of just became an entity. And it sort of grew into what it was. And then do you guys want to talk about how Jordan got added?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jordan cut my hair.
This is true. Jeff, you should tell your side of it first.
I can't remember all of it, but pretty much I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was kind of talking about my games and stuff, and they were like, oh, you should go talk to this guy, Jordan. He cuts hairs. He would totally love to hear about it. And the first time I was told that, I thought, no, I don't want to go in this guy's like barber shop and be pitching my games and whatever. So I didn't do it that first time, but then someone mentioned it again, like later, and I was like, well, I need a haircut, so I'll just go in there. And then, you know, you go in there and he's super friendly and ask him what you do, and then gets excited about games, and then we became friends pretty quickly, and then everyone met him after that.
So you literally did a pitch of what, Steepseers or Alkemia, and he was like, count me in.
Well,
Pretty
so
much.
you know, it's funny, like the town where we are living in, they're living in, I'm not there anymore, but Ithaca, it's kind of a small place, so the nerds start to get to know each other. And so it turns out a mutual friend had actually told Jeff to come see me. And I had just reached this sort of epiphany for myself that the only thing stopping me from becoming a game designer was just choosing to make games. And so I was already like coming up with all kinds of wild ideas for new games and stuff, but not really sure like what direction to take it, how to get there. And then Jeff sat down in the chair and started talking to me about game design. They were right in the middle of the Kickstarter for Alkemia, actually, at that time.
Oh, really?
And it was near the end of the Kickstarter. But I got wrapped up and excited and, you know, about the whole process. And they invited me over to play test then Steepseers. And then we just started hanging out as friends. And before I knew it, it was like, hey, do you want to come on as like a consultant for Steepseers? And then as time moved on, it turned into, want to join the crew? You know?
Okay.
So I kind of like a buttery amoeba, I melded into the group.
That's a visual.
All right, there you go. So in the sense, you are, as a barber, you're one haircut away from your dreams.
There you go. That's it.
I don't know how many people can actually say that in real life. So that's actually an incredible story. So we've had a lot of indie developers, mostly of the video game kind, on the podcast. And a lot of them choose to either work solo, or there's a husband and wife duo, or there is a financial relationship there, and one of them is just contracted out to the other. So it is really incredible that the five of you sort of came together. Maybe the sort of small community fostered that, but
I'd say predominantly awesome. Over the love of games, which is, I think, a really good place to start with development.
Definitely.
That's sure. Awesome. We're going to talk more about that because I have more questions now.
All right,
cool. Let's start with the first game, Alkemia, Destiny's Recipe. So I first saw this at, as I said, FlameCon, and I think I saw it again at FlameCon too. I contributed to Kickstarter. What was the inspiration behind this? How did you guys come up with this?
So for this one, I feel like Alkemia actually predates Kinsoul Studio, and that Alkemia was kind of the glue that formed Kinsoul Studio, so to say. I have a distinct memory of us all like sitting around Matt's kitchen table, and we were just like, we had a long weekend of playing games. And on Sunday, before we were leaving, we were just like, you know, I wonder what it takes to like actually make a game, and maybe we should just, you know, do it. And then we got brainstorming at that time, and then in that brainstorming process, the concept of alchemy and making an alchemical themed board game kind of birthed itself from there.
And then we were like, oh, good God, what have we gotten ourselves into? This is incredible amounts of work.
Pretty much.
That came a bit later, but yes. Yeah, in that story, I distinctly remember the moment where we were like, oh yeah, you know, how, you know, what could we do? What would happen? And like, we just like fell silent for, I don't even know, 10, 15 minutes. I mean, it was an extended amount of time. And by the time we were done and we all talked again, within an hour of conversation, we had the basis of Alkemia worked out. And we were like, yeah, maybe this is what we should be doing.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So it's Alkemia is more of a resource-based management game. So do you want to talk a little bit more about the gameplay there, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, it's an item crafting resource management game. where you take the role of an alchemist who is trying to prove themselves. They're kind of up and coming, newer alchemists, and they're trying to get experience and prove themselves. And there's sort of a catastrophic-esque event on the horizon, and they're trying to raise themselves up to the position of a grand alchemist so they can like help and kind of help fix everything. So they're given a test to create a legendary item, the Crest of Creation. The only problem is nobody knows how to make it. So throughout the game, you go around collecting resources, crafting items, getting powers, doing all sorts of cool things, bending the rules in different ways, and combos and things like that. And as you create items, it's like research, and you learn how to create this lost item. And you literally piece it together. And then it's the first person to piece together the recipe and complete it is the winner.
That sounds great. And it is a very fun game. I've never played it with you guys before, though. Maybe that will probably need to change at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
Depending on what the kind of experience you want, you could play with me if you want like some power fantasy, because I'm quite bad at Alkemia, even though it's fun to play. But choose one of the others if you want an actual competition.
Noted. Okay. Well, you guys need to come down to the city, or I need to make it up there before that happens.
Yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
figure that out in COVID times.
All right.
So your second game was Steepseers. It is more of a card-based game. Let's talk about that.
A little bit. Eric.
Want to cover that, Eric, since it was your idea child? Or
I can start us off again. So Steepseers is kind of a blend between fortune telling and brewing tea. And this is kind of funny because all of us in the group love both fortune telling and brewing tea. I mean, we were doing this before we were Kinsoul Studio, so it was kind of like a natural fit for a game that all of us would have some sort of knowledge on and would have some sort of input on. So from there, it became, okay, well, how can we blend these concepts together, and what mechanics can we use, and what have we learned from Alkemia, where we can make a tea brewing fortune telling game?
Wait, so you guys tarot cards? All of you?
They're tarot card sized.
We actually have to
Well, yeah, they're tarot card sized, yeah, but were you guys into tarot cards before this? I don't think I knew this.
Yeah. All of us in some way.
Oh.
Yeah. He's got a deck. I've got a whole drawer full of them.
Eric likes runes.
Eric does tarot and rune reading, and I was trying to get into palm reading at one point, but the book was big. But yeah, we've all been into it in different ways, and like Eric said, we just sort of naturally fell into it, and they're the two things that we've just always loved, and we're like, let's see if we can challenge ourselves to make a game out of it, and we did.
And it's fun because the deck itself, whether in the game or you can just purchase the deck by itself, is an oracle deck. So you can use it as just that, as a divination tool.
I don't think I knew that. That's cool. So it's a tea making game.
Yeah.
And it's card game. So you all like making tea, and you all like telling fortunes. So you're just gonna combine the two to make the game then? So
Right,
how do you
so
win the
that's-
game?
So that's kind of the thematic glue that holds it together, but mechanically wise, the game is kind of similar to Alkemia, where there is a resource gathering mechanic, but it's a little different in that you use dice to do so. So throughout the game, you'll have 4 different dice, which represent 4 different tea ingredient houses. We have fruit, herbs, flowers, and tea leaves. So you'll be making teas with those combinations of ingredients by kind of rolling dice and collecting ingredients. And the other interesting thing about the game is that once you collect your ingredients, there's also a memory mechanic, in that you will put them in a bag and they'll be held there blindly until you're ready to use them, or in game terminology, pour them. And at that point, on the table, there will be a grid of the cards that you're trying to, in game terminology, again, evoke or just collect in game points. So you'll pour out all of your ingredients, and you'll see what you have to be able to make some of those cards. And from there, it's pretty much just having the best combination of cards, having the most points, and using abilities that are on the cards to the best of their synergies to become the winner within 10 rounds.
That sounds great. So both Alkemia and Steepseers have had successful Kickstarter campaigns. Kickstarter's not fun. Let's talk about that.
Well, the first
Or not
Well,
talk about.
Let's start off.
Let's skip that question.
Next.
I would love to, but I remember being pinged by a few of you guys actually on Facebook during the Alkemia Kickstarter. It's like, give us more money. And,
Please, everyone we know, give us money now. Thanks. Yeah,
no, I was very happy that both of them were successful, but I know that wasn't easy. So let's talk about that.
Alkemia didn't go through the first time.
I remember
had too.
I
So,
remember.
Yeah, that was an uphill battle for sure. It's like you're always working against, well, what else is being released on Kickstarter at that time? And is a large super mega company going to release something on Kickstarter to get funded at that time?
Right.
And so that was, I mean, that's always a battle for everyone, of course, I'm sure.
I think the first time was Scythe.
Is that what it was? I was trying to remember what game came out. I think
Pretty sure it was Scythe. And we were like, oh, crap. This is going to suck.
Isn't that the single most well-funded Kickstarter board game?
I mean, probably.
I think it was.
I mean, it looked cool, so I get it, but
Having handled the pieces, it feels like a game that was successfully kickstarted. I mean, just
It was up there. I think Kingdom Death Monster may still hold the crown, but I'm not 100%.
That's what I was going to ask. I figured Kingdom Death might have the most.
yeah.
Fact check us on this.
Fact check. But yeah, I mean, I kind
I
of
don't
clearly
follow
remember that it was Scythe. At
It
least
might
the
have
first
been.
time. I'm pretty sure about that.
Game of that level, like something that like absorbed the entire board game like Kickstarter community. Pretty much funneled all of their efforts into that, and so a lot of different projects were sort of affected by it. And then couple that with the fact that it was our very first project, we're very new, nobody knows us really. It just was sort of destined not to work out that first time. But we recognized that, you know,
We
about
got to
halfway
learn
in.
from it and do different things.
Yeah, we did all the prep, you know, we did everything we should have done, and we learned a lot in that process. So when it came to making the second one, the second Kickstarter for Alkemia, we took those lessons, refined them, made it all better, you know, improved the page, improved the goal, improved the rewards, did a ton of promotion, ton of outreach, went to a lot more conventions. That's when we really started stepping up our convention game.
Pestered more and more friends and family.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about the outreach and the conventions. What did you do there?
So we did attend more, like I said, and we decided that that was going to be a really big focus for us, because that moment where you're talking to somebody about a board game, that especially if it's like your own idea, or you know, or a picture when you go to a convention and you're talking to a developer of any kind, and you see that excitement, you see that passion, it's infectious. You know, it really like catches on, and people get excited. People love that personal connection. You know, and we had been going to conventions on our own just as guests for a long time. So like, I kind of recognized that. I was like, guys, I think we can use this power to like help encourage people to like, you know, like us and like our games. And it ended up working.
So it's not like you don't have like paralyzing anxiety when you go in those situations where it's like, well, that's great. Just sort of, I get extremely anxious at conventions. It's very hard for me to promote myself. It's a problem. But
Understandable. I think a lot of people really have that problem, and in other circles I do too, but for some reason at like a game convention I just like wake up.
And that's, that's the mega benefit of being in such a big group, because we can take that moment like to step away from the table and, you know, gather our thoughts and things like that. And if we
take a break if it's too much.
Exactly, take it on as a team, because I hear you on like feeling anxious and you know, right before it starts and people start coming in, it gets like all of a sudden I forgot every single thing I'm supposed to say, and I just am babbling and feel like I didn't represent the game well. But then, you know, it moves on and feel comfortable, and it becomes so like a lot of fun. So I can't wait till we start getting back into these.
Yeah, me too. I regret that I wasn't at Play NYC. So aside from the conventions, what kind of like social media outreach did you guys do?
Mostly reaching out to friends and family. That's one of the things looking back on the two Kickstarters that I'm always thinking about is if we were to do a third one, what is something that we could definitely improve on? And getting the Kickstarter ready is kind of like running a marathon, and
No shit.
we tired ourselves out pretty quickly because we didn't actually have any kind of professional Kickstarter help. We did everything ourselves and just try to use like all of our skills to kind of patchwork the Kickstarter campaign together. If we had professional help, that might have lessened our burden a little bit. And also having more funds for like paid marketing, I think would be something that we would really want to improve upon next time. Because by the time Kickstarter started, we were really just kind of tapped out at that point. And we're like,
Right.
well, I mean, we're just going to have to, do the best that we can. And luckily the second run of Alkemia and the first run of Steepseers kind of came in clutch at the end. So that was a nail biting moment.
Oh my God, the last day of both of those.
Oh my God.
Yeah, for Steepseers, that one did go through in the first try, and I have far fewer memories of you guys bugging me on that one. So was that one
Just under the
easier?
wire though.
Yeah.
Oh, it was under the wire, but a lot of Kickstarters are. So was that experience a lot better, or?
I think it was less pressure.
I think overall it went
For
a lot smoother.
Me.
Yeah.
You guys maybe different stuff.
The prep was smoother. Like we knew what we were
Hey.
doing better this time. We had examples of kind of how we did things with Alkemia, so it was a nice stepping to the next one and like kind of taking those lessons. And we really improved it. We did it a lot faster. Alkemia took from start to finish 3 years, I think, to make and like get it produced and come out. Like,
5.
release it. And then
I think it was 5 years, man.
No, it was
Well,
3, but
Like or 4 or something, but whatever.
I guess technically it was conceived in 2012, but Kinsoul
Yeah.
started in 2014, and then it came out in 2017. So I always kind of did it with Kinsoul.
Okay.
But you're right, it actually was longer that we were working.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Steepseers we turned around in like a year.
Yeah, that seemed a lot faster, but I feel like from a production standpoint, it was maybe a simpler game.
Yes.
Definitely simpler in some ways. We had a few new challenges with the manufacturing aspect, and we had to like switch manufacturers, so that was a whole new thing. And as Eric
It was
said,
to the game's benefit, let me say.
yes,
Okay. It was definitely to the game's benefit.
mhm, absolutely true. And the other thing was the dice. We didn't have like custom dice in the first game, and then in the second one we did, and they really were like central to the game because like the look and the feel of them, it's something you're interacting with all the time. It was so important. So it was just kind of new for us to like, how do we order custom dice? And oh my God, they cost what? And there were a lot of nice surprises like that along the way.
I can believe it, but sticking on the Kickstarter side of things, is it harder now, would you say, than has it gotten harder? I have a feeling that it kind of has for
I would-
tabletop games.
I
I
would
know it's kind of harder
say
for video games.
I would say because I feel like the culture of Kickstarter changed as we were making Alkemia.
Yeah.
Like when we started, the culture was different. By the time we finished it, it had changed.
In what way?
Just that it was more smaller companies on there. And then by the time we finished, it kind of like moved to, oh, Square Enix has a game on there. What?
Wow.
Kind of thing.
Well,
So,
then you're not.
yeah.
And
That's
the,
interesting,
love
'cause
them.
I always thought the point of Kickstarter was to help kind of smaller
Exactly.
productions, right?
There is no territory where smaller productions exist that large productions don't try to butt in on and ruin eventually.
Yeah.
It's like how do we
Kickstarter
get
is
free
not
money
a-
from people kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's a really dangerous idea to consider Kickstarter as a long-term solution. I mean, it's rapidly leaving everybody's grasp, and we need to accept that sooner rather than later. Sorry, that's a bit of a personal aside, but
Well, that's actually a good thing to bring up, because do you think that some other platform will pick up the torch and kind of fill that void?
as
There's an opportunity
successfully,
there, right?
there is opportunity there. It might also be one of those, like, you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. You can't even capture lightning once. The era might change, right? The whole attitude around games is changing. It's been changing for the last 10 years. And I mean, not to, okay, this is this tabletop world, Asmodee, right? Buying up every single property that exists. I mean, we have our own unstoppable EA version, juggernaut. And I don't know, a platform like Kickstarter may very well be largely inaccessible in reality in the next few years, and there might not be something to replace it. We might be living out the last fun days where people of our size can actually fund something on something like that.
Well, that thought is kind of depressing. So
I know.
I hope that that's not the case.
Me too.
So I'm gonna pivot here, and you guys have been working together for almost 10 years now, and 5 now with Jordan, but it wasn't always at 5. But even an indie team working together, 2 people, that's, as I said earlier, that's difficult. What kind of challenges have you guys had going through this process for 2 games together?
I personally think that it's been relatively smooth besides the normal things you deal with. I would say that obviously some challenges are you don't get the full say in what goes in your game. If you're making it yourself, you're like, I want this in it, I want this in it, I don't want this in it. You can't do that with a bigger team. But I don't want to get into upsides, but I think a good upside quickly is just that you get people to call you out on some of your ideas, or when we've been hanging too long on a game and we just need to sort of wrap it up and move on, that kind of thing. But yeah, I would say probably the biggest challenge that I've experienced is just someone really wanted this mechanic in a game and maybe they came up with it, and you have to have that talk of like, okay, but it's not working. Let's move on and do something else. That's really challenging when you're friends and you don't want to like hurt people's feelings, and
So no one was like, fuck you, I hate you.
Probably at some point, maybe off the phone. But
we didn't tell you about the 6th member of our group.
Oh yeah, we don't talk about the 6th.
No, we don't talk now.
No.
Oh, okay. He's the one that's no longer with us, I assume.
Yeah. Allegedly.
Yeah, and otherwise, just kind of scheduling things and coordination is harder with a bigger team, right? Because we'll have a convention coming up, and I'll be like, oh, who wants to go to this one? And everyone does, everyone doesn't. There's some combinations, schedules get all messy, and so it makes it a little harder to plan for things necessarily, because everybody wants to be involved in some way, and things become a little last minute because of that. So some coordinating is definitely harder with a bigger team, but we've grown into it. I think our systems for all that kind of stuff are growing.
So are you guys familiar with Gumbo?
I make great gumbo.
I mean, the
Okay.
I've eaten gumbo.
The game development cooperative in New York City. I'm a part of it. The Phat Games is a part of it.
Oh,
So I've asked the same question to a lot of them, and it's you guys are way nicer, but it could be because you don't live in New York City. They're all great people, by the way, but it's like, yeah, sometimes we fight a lot, but we figure it out. And it's like, you guys are just very polite about the whole thing. So that's very refreshing. Maybe it's a difference in the tabletop versus the video game world.
I mean, there's definitely times of stress, but we figure it out and move on.
Well, Matt's actually worked on mobile game development within a group and virtually, so
right.
That's a whole different challenge.
That's
I
a
imagine.
whole other thing.
Yeah.
There was actually, I think I had more drama in my last class and team than I've ever had with Kinsoul over all the years. It's like, really? Oh, and she was from New York.
Maybe it's because being people from New York City are just assholes.
Yes, us upstaters are just a little nicer, I guess.
You're closer to the Canadian border, it bleeds over, the politeness, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
What did you want to say, Eric?
I was going to say it's also important to note that all of us, for the most part, have full-time jobs in addition to working on games. So I think that's one of those things that just helps us all understand that we all have like limited time to do board game design in our spare time, as
Mhm.
small as it
Right.
may be.
So actually, that's a great thing to bring up. How have you guys managed the time? Do you have like a schedule or?
It's sort of, we play it kind of loose at first, and then once we've settled on like the next game, and actually we just kind of started doing this with our third game now. We've really kind of
Ooh, you
focused
brought
on
up the
that.
third game. Okay.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. But like once we're kind of like, okay, this is the game, here is the concept, here's some assets, let's start putting something together. Once we kind of get to that point, we start laying out kind of a timeline and a schedule of like, when do we want the game to be released? If we're going to do Kickstarter, when do we need to like, block off the time for that, and how much prep time? So we kind of like fill it backwards from there and kind of like figure out, what our schedule looks like. So we'll put something together and kind of define it all out and, figure it out. My job is I'm a software engineer and a project manager for what I do at my company. And so I kind of take a lot of what I've learned from that and I use it here in terms of like tasking and building schedules and just trying to organize everybody and keep things flowing, in some
I
measure.
can relate to that.
Oh yeah, you can, can't you?
Okay, so producing a tabletop game the challenges of producing that are way different. I thought that maybe that actually would be harder, but I just want to say different than maybe producing a digital game. Let's talk about that process. Like, how do you find vendors and all that stuff to manufacture this and do what you need to get done?
Begging them.
Begging them.
Luckily, manufacturers are quite eager to
Take your money.
work with us and take our money. Yes.
Yeah, we're swatting them away most of the time.
Interesting.
Um,
What is the process? Like I've never done this before. I'm curious.
Gosh, well, I guess at what point in the process do you want to start?
Well, starts with the
we can talk
printing,
early game, we can talk mid game, we can talk production,
card
we can
sleeves, printed.
Yeah. Yep. No notebook paper and card sleeves to.
When a dice tower and a set of cards really love each other.
All right. So basically, you're saying you have different vendors for different aspects of the game, but you still need to sort of bring that all together and put it all together in a nice, happy box to ship it out to customers. So
In some ways,
sounds
it's
like a
like
coordination nightmare.
in some ways it's just as simple as like just purchasing a bunch of small objects, right? I mean, right now you could go online and you could order a t-shirt with a face on it, and you wouldn't think it's particularly complicated to get a t-shirt with a face on it. The complication is much more so in how to do 20,000 of them and producing all the different components from different places, that sort of thing. Of course, Matt and Adam have much more experience with this actual portion of it.
I was gonna say we have, when you get to the like I'm done mode, then you send it to. Do we name names here? I don't know.
We used, oh gosh, can't even remember. We used Wingo for our producer for Alkemia, and we used Phat Games for Steepseers.
But for actual like playtest.
Oh, but for prototyping, Game Crafter, we use them a lot.
Yeah. We actually visited that.
Did we?
Wasn't that the one we visited in Florida?
No, that's IGA.
IGA.
But Game Crafter is a service that is like a manufacturer, in that you can make custom parts and upload your art and things like that, and they'll make everything for you. But they do their orders in small batches.
So that's for prototyping specifically.
Exactly.
That's their model then.
It's really nice, clean finish kind of thing to bring to the conventions and drum up support to get your Kickstarter funded.
Yep, that's exactly what we've done.
Yeah.
Usually we'll make something from Game Crafter and take it to several conventions, but most importantly, we've kind of, the one we like most lately is Metatopia. That one is perfect for playtesting and for alphas and betas. There's no pressure of sales. There's no pressure of completeness. Everyone is just there to test new ideas and talk about them.
Metatopia,
New
Jersey.
It's in New Jersey.
Yeah.
In like November. But yeah, and actually we're planning on going with our third game this year.
That's exciting. So what's like the cost of some of that then? I'm a complete noob here. I know nothing about tabletop development.
It depends on the components, really. the number of cards, or the number of things, the materials they're made out of. Are they custom? Are they standard? Like getting a standard size D6 die with pips on them is super cheap, but then if you want to get a twice the size die that's colored and custom cut with engravings, that's like 6 times the price is what it would normally have been. So it really varies depending on what you want in your game.
Well, and a huge factor now that I actually can't even fathom when we're going to have to deal with this is the shipping costs, because we have now, things are made in China typically. And so that's where our games have come from. So we've got Longpack and Wingo, and they were our manufacturers. And, but then you have to get it on the boat and get it over here. So you have the wait time is typically 30 to 50 days in the ocean, and it used to cost I don't know, few $1,000s.
Just a couple thousand. We didn't really spend too much on the actual shipping to us, which was nice. It was a good surprise.
It's been like 200 to 300% increase in shipping costs.
So is that because of COVID, or is that lead back to some of the tariffs that Trump did, or is it a combination of both?
That's a combination. You've got the actual the tariffs are huge. That was when we got Steepseers in. I was like checking the website constantly, like, are we going to get this extra 25% or 10% or whatever it might be on the value of the items?
We dodged that bullet by like a month.
Yeah,
two.
I don't.
We almost got the tariff.
Yeah, I don't know the current status or situation. Like, are people being charged this extra 25% or extra 10 or 15%? Because that's wild. But the actual freight cost, the cost to get it from port to port and then get it from a freight truck to your final location, which in our case was a storage facility, it's gone up dramatically, and it is because of COVID. There was that one spot in the recent history where the Suez Canal got backed up with prices shot. I bring in product from China in my regular day-to-day job, so like that's why I kind of know a little bit more about that. But it's created like the prices will go up and up. A crisis happens, it goes up and up. It's not going to come down. That's what I'm feeling so far. It might eventually, but when I think about getting into our next one, shipping costs to get it here is going to be a huge factor. You're going to have to remember, I don't need $20,000. I need $27,000, $28,000. Who knows? But it's a scary time for sure.
Wow. So have you done any second runs on Alkemia or Steepseers since you first?
No. We did ditch the storage facility, luckily, and we were able to store it in other means because we did sell, a number of them. But yeah, we still have plenty of games, people.
Ready to be
great. So let's sell you guys some games.
KinsoulStudio.com, check it out.
They're a great game.
In times past, the gift of Steam Sight was highly respected and cherished by all. Those who possess this gift, known as Steepseers, can observe foretelling visions within the steam of various teas. By brewing just the right ingredients, those bestowed with Steam Sight can create a myriad of prosthetic steams. Oh, pardon me a second. The right ingredients and help from steam spirits, like myself, of course. Okay, where was I? Right. The Steepseer then interprets the vision and offers their visitors sound advice. It used to be that I had near constant requests from Steepseers to aid in their visions. The knocks at the door are fewer and fewer in recent times. Something has spooked the humans into acting as if we don't exist. Perhaps that is why we are fading away. Time is of the essence as we enter our final 10 days. Belief in us must be restored before we, spirits and Steepseers, vanish forever. Choose one of 4 tea houses to call home. Attune to various vision cards which you will attempt to fulfill with the right ingredients. Don't worry, we Steam Spirits will help you out along the way. Roll the dice and collect ingredients to place in your teapot. You will have to remember that what has gone into your teapot and wisely choose when to make the pour. If the needed ingredients are present, the vision is triggered. Take the vision card, reattune, and begin brewing your next tea. Visions generate belief, and you will have in-game and end-of-game effects to boost belief even higher. Be the one to inspire the most belief. Perhaps you will go down in history as the one who saved us all.
Willing to talk about your sales?
Yeah, sure. What do you want to know?
Yeah.
How have they been?
How you do it?
What happens? Well, first you have a product, and then you talk to it. No, okay. They've been pretty good, especially considering like it's again us really. It's a small team. We don't really have any distribution deals or big store contracts right now. We get our games into a lot of small local stores by basically just walking in and talking to the owners. Eric has done a great job walking through most of like the Ithaca and southern like tier area there of New York and getting our games all around.
We're
Yeah,
technically
NYC?
selling internationally now too.
Oh, really?
That's true.
Because I went to my local game store and sold a copy. So that felt great.
We're getting there slowly. Conventions again have become kind of the main way that we get our games out there and in people's faces and excited about them. And we have really good success at most conventions when we can be there talking about the games and get people really into it. I would say we've probably sold out half of both of our products so far, which again, that's like several hundred copies each. So I think that's really good for, a small team with fairly limited resources at this point.
That's awesome. I can only imagine how difficult that would be. So when Gary and I launched Burgle's Bounty 4 years ago now, we made $86 off that.
Hey man, that's a lot more than I thought we did. I thought we only made like $5.
We made a whole $86.
Where's
Gary.
the profits, Blair? You pocketed that.
They went right back into Kids of Karendow. And Kids of Karendow, off of the donations from itch.io, were at about $50, and the game still has probably a good 4 to 5 years left in the development cycle. So I would say we're doing pretty good already. All right, so game 3, guys. What is it? What can you tell? What do you want to share?
Suppose I'm up, huh?
Yeah.
So our third game is called Sally's Submersible. It concerns the titular Sally, who is a mad woman on a quest to prove the existence of Atlantis in her homemade sub. So it's a bit
I already
of a,
like this concept. I'm with you. It sounds awesome.
It's a bit of a departure from the theming we had going with the first 2 games. I would say actually it's a bit of a departure in every respect. It's not a crafting game. It's not a non-violent game. It's a explorative, lightly combative game where you're managing your, in fairness, it is a resource management game. Your sub has a number of different systems, and Sally is running a submarine by herself, which is not easy. It's a bad idea, and it was made in her front yard. So it is constantly taking in water. Systems are bursting into flames. She has to manage them all as she's navigating the ocean, fighting monsters, discovering wacky things, all while searching for the key to the gate of Atlantis.
Some worms.
Yeah, there's Ruzel worms. That's true.
Worms,
That's
watch
what,
out.
what,
And
one of
Ruzel
the
worms.
monsters.
So is everyone playing as Sally, or is their own version of Sally? Is there a Karen involved in there maybe?
So
Sorry, I
if
couldn't
you're
help
playing
myself.
so it's worth mentioning. I should have said this at first. It is a solo game
Okay.
initially. It can be played with 4 players, but its standard play is solo. Hello, gato.
Oh, your cat looks just like mine.
Say hi, and then say
Hi,
bye.
kitty.
So yes, it's a solo game, but there is accommodation for 3 more players who are 3 different characters who are actually part of the story of the game, which the game has a light campaign that one can play. So you have a series of missions to play. But it's kind of a weird word within tabletop play, but it's technically a procedurally generated game with tiles. So the
What is
game.
Sorry, how does that work?
So it's
procedurally generated tabletop game.
Yeah, so each time you move the sub, you can go to a different tile. There's 3 different levels of water, each level being deeper and more difficult and carrying more frightening monsters. But of course, you have to go very, very deep to find Atlantis. If there is Atlantis, spoilers. But yeah, so it's actually handled quite simply. It's a grid of flipped over tiles, and then you hop from one to the next. And certain tiles have a chance to have an encounter on them, which is a monster or maybe some treasure or some other unique event. And you're picking up upgrades and more resources. And so each time you play, it'll probably be different from the last time you played.
So was this fun at Play NYC? Did you show this off?
I did not. I wasn't sure the degree to which I could talk about it at the time. I had a couple of people asking, if we had anything planned up next, and I said, well, yes, we do, but I can't say anything. I wasn't sure if I could, so I just defaulted to I can't. No comment.
How far along are you guys?
Well, so it's worth mentioning that the initial creation of this game was back in January of 2020.
Okay.
Because as a personal test for myself, aside from working with Kinsoul, I challenged myself to make 12 games in 12 months. And so each month make a new tabletop game.
It's like doing a major game jam for like a actual digital game or something.
Right. So I wanted, as a designer, to test myself specifically in places where I felt I was weak as a designer, but also to explore like cool concepts that I'd thought about a million times but never did anything with it. So I have a whole host of games now that I have on my computer or prototyped throughout my studio that are just sort of like 1 to 2 mechanics slammed together in a gameplay loop. So Sally's was the first of the projects, though. Because it was a challenge to myself, because I don't like dice. I don't like dice in general for tabletop games, because there's a certain type of randomness that I don't think is particularly fun. So with that in mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself to make a dice game. So that way I have to get good at math, well, better at math, but also I have to sort of analyze what the weaknesses of dice are and how to improve upon those things that I perceive as weaknesses. And maybe gain an appreciation for why I see these consistent, what I think are faults within dice-based games. So anyway, I just got to work. I made all the artwork, I made all the pieces, I printed it out. So I have various copies laying around the house. And then as time drew on, I can't keep this a secret from Kinsoul, like, hey guys, check it out. I have this game I've been making. And of course, by that point, they're like, yeah, we hear this a lot from you. You've making a lot of games.
Yeah, Jordan.
So,
Sure.
I literally have
Oh, we're gonna see it, are we?
We're going on a trip.
Field trip.
All right, we're gonna be able to see something that we probably shouldn't see.
Well, in my studio, I
Oh,
have my game toolkit, which is just filled with all my little pieces and tools that I want. Whenever I'm just thinking I might make a game, I have some idea. This is all faded from a martial arts card game, card and dice game that I made. So
Yeah, Jordan likes to hand make a lot of his initial pieces for things. Like we were at a show one time.
Incredible.
He was sitting there like actually sculpting.
Yeah, I remember that.
I do an awful lot of prototyping for myself because I can't be bothered to wait for shipping times.
Fair.
Oh yeah, this is I upgraded to a larger kit there. Can I show some of Sally's, like the early stuff?
No.
Management has spoken.
So this is the initial version, which can fit in a bag this small.
Wow.
Missing some pieces though. Can't figure out where those went. Here's our little resource tracker. That's how much water you've taken in, your hull value, your weapons, your fuel, and your electricity. See if I can find anything fun. But the tiles, oh gosh, this is literally the first one I made, I can tell. Because the real one's printed. So I
There's
wrote
an eye
this.
on it.
So yeah, we have weird little monsters on the tiles. Some of them are blank.
Here's the Ruzel worm.
I can show you a Ruzel worm, that's true.
Did you print these off yourself then?
I did. I drew all the art just so that way, I don't know, it's easier for me to imagine what the game really looks like if I've made some stuff for it. And this is what Jeff was asking for, by the way. This is the Ruzel worm. Occasionally, Sally has little post-it notes that she puts across the console of her sub, and you can read them here.
I like the Sally person. She seems very organized.
She's an interesting lady. She's partially on this journey because she's running from the HOA. So
I don't blame her for that at all.
So anyway, it's I wish I remembered exactly where I just moved to this new apartment, so I don't know where all my stuff is, but I wish I could find the slightly more complete version of the game. But anyway, so to answer the real question that you asked at the beginning of this, just a few months ago, we sort of decided that, you know, COVID somewhat easing up, it's time to get back into the game design world because Sally's had been paused for basically the entire pandemic.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. So the game, a version of the game is complete. And the latest version, which has been quite updated since its initial release, is I just finished it up, 2 days ago? And we're going to start testing it together and playing around with the pieces. And we'll be bringing that version to Metatopia first week of November.
Great. So dare I ask, Kickstarter?
At this point, probably.
Yeah,
Most
yes,
likely.
I would say.
Probably.
Mainly just because we don't have a good alternative at the moment.
You've got my money, just so you
Get a
know.
crowdfunder. Great. You're still gonna get all the messages though. Sorry.
That's fine.
Probably at least 2 from each of us.
Great.
At least that's
I'm
a
excited for it now.
multiples of us. Like you get
Jordan
them
sold me. I want this game. I'm ready
Like,
now.
Hey,
I
just-
don't
how are
need
you
more
doing?
people. I can play this game alone, it sounds like. And that's the biggest problem with the other games. They have very few people to play with.
Oh, well, I mean, just to
I
know,
have
real
no
quick,
friends.
on Steepseers, that actually is a 1 to 4 player game. So you can
That
play
it
it
is.
by yourself.
That's true.
I
Yes, you
haven't
can.
done it before.
You
Just-
should.
It's fun, actually.
It's good.
I'll give that a try. It's been a while.
As
Do you have
a-
a kettle, Blair? It sounds like you need to brew some tea for this game.
You do.
I do have a kettle and I have a lot of tea. I should.
It's only proper.
You should have some tea and some like nice little Zen music. We actually made a soundtrack for the game as well.
Yeah. Oh gosh, knowing so many talent, like
I
my
don't know if I knew that.
Oh, We know a lot of musicians.
We know a lot of musicians. My sister did some music for the first one, and she's done everything. Okay,
Well,
she's a musician, an electrician. She's an artist. So she made some of the stretch goals. Is that what it was?
Yeah, this is one of the highest reward tier items we had in the Steepseers Kickstarter. Was a custom made box from her that she would wood burn and carve. And wait, is this one filled? No, this one's not filled.
Maybe this one is.
She would fill them with like a foam and a colored silk of use a player's choice.
That was the logo right there. Steepseers one.
Yeah.
Holy crap! Like the amount of effort that is just phenomenal.
Pretty cool. But yes, Erica Zalatin. What would Erica do on Instagram? What, and then the word would, WOOD, Erica do. Check it out.
Adam, this is about us?
Yeah,
my sister is talented.
Yes, no, she is very talented. She is, definitely.
Blair, I can leave you with a final teaser here.
I would love a final teaser.
Can I share screen? Is that possible?
Yes, it will be picked up in recording, but they'll only be able to see it on YouTube. But that's great. Go for it.
The art is not necessarily representative of the final results. We'll have a real artist make it in the end. But this is the teaser that we have just for the splash graphic to put on the Game Crafter box and everything. And that's your sub right there.
Sweet.
Yeah, we're very excited about this one, and we're definitely planning to take all the lessons that we've learned from the two games now, and really see what we can do about making this game a little more quickly, a little more efficiently, less stress as much as possible, and just keep refining our process. Like we have so many game ideas between all of us of all different things that we want to do and try, and I like to think that even we're on our third game, which is more than so many other small like indie companies can even say. We've been going for a while, and I'd like to think it's the beginning. I think we have a lot more to give.
Yeah,
that's
incredible. I think we have like a document in Dropbox called Game Ideas, and there's like 20 on there, just waiting for us to make them at some point. Just kind of like Jordan said, he has a bunch of game ideas. Before Jordan had the same thing, so we have a lot of ideas to make games about.
Wow, you got a long way to go then. Sounds exciting.
Never gonna run out.
So Gary, how does this sound? You guys want to make tabletop games next? We've had that one idea in the pipeline for like 20
Well, I did ask this of you. I can't remember if it was actually during the podcast or not. But I remember back in the day, you, Phil, and your brother had an idea for the game. I think it was called Royal Block.
Royal Guard was the official name, and it was based off a game that you and your brother made, actually.
It was mostly my brother. Like I think the game that we made, I guess, was kind of like more like a quick game that you can play within kind of like 10-15 minutes. But I remember when we played your version, it was more kind of like longer and more involved.
Yeah, it was far more strategic and could last for a while. It was just use a standard 50. Actually, we used jokers too, so it was 54 card deck. We could make our own deck out of it, but it was basically just a card game. But we found it a lot of fun. Who knows if other people would? I believe Phil actually made a version of it on computer many years ago, but I've never seen that version of it, and I think he wanted to make online play out of it too. But I don't know if that ever went anywhere, what state that's in. But hey, maybe it's something we can revisit one day.
Dude, do you even remember how to play it?
I do. The instructions.
Oh, you do? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we've got the instructions documented.
Instructions. Yeah, important.
And you actually have the instructions.
I do.
Because this must have been like pen and paper type days.
No, I moved them over to Google Drive some years ago.
Oh,
smart man.
Nice.
Fancy.
So, but we're not going to end with Gary and I. We are going to ask you guys for what advice you would give to any other crazy, inspiring tabletop designers or just any indie game developer out there, because you guys have been doing this for quite a while now, and you're pretty solid at it.
Luckily, information on how to be successful when at least bringing a game to Kickstarter, it's not super coveted in the board game world. As in, I would recommend going to some of the larger board game designers' websites, and a lot of them have very helpful blogs that you can use. And they'll cover everything from, how to ship and, who to market to, do's and don'ts of board game designing. Pretty much any help topic you can find, a lot of designers will have them for you. So a lot of them have paved the way in that regard, so it's easy to do that. However, kind of getting your own resources kind of like pooled together and getting ready to that point is kind of like the difficulty that we have at least faced.
Yeah.
I think if you attend if you can get to a convention, whether it be physical or virtually, if you can get to a convention and you can go to the panels, that's where like we got to hear a lot of the key information of like what roadblocks you're going to face and what things that we can say now that we couldn't have known before, and so listening to the people who've come before you is, if you can get in that situation, do it.
So like, what about things like finding vendors and stuff? Because you guys mentioned a few, but how did you find them?
How did I find them? I think we were just kind of searching around the internet, taking some advice from people that we had met at conventions and stuff. And actually, okay, we did do all that. But ultimately, these two came from a support group that we are a part of called the Indie Game Alliance. IGA. Yep. And I was going to bring that up as my next point. They are a group dedicated to tabletop designers in the indie realm. And they're all about helping give you the resources that you need. They've made deals with manufacturers, retailers, distributors, everything you possibly need to make a game. And they've got like discounts and the different special things you can do by being a member. And so we are a member of them with them. We've been with them for a very long time. And both Wingo and Longpack had really good discounts with them. And so we were like, let's look into them and who are they, and that we just sort of struck up the conversation from there, and it ended up being a good fit. So that, I guess that'd be part of my advice, is there's a lot of support groups out there, something like IGA for sure. And I'm sure there's others, but that's the one we fell into and we really enjoy it.
Yeah, and if you can, going to the bigger conventions such as Gen Con, for example, if you go there, almost, I don't want to say all of them, but a huge portion of manufacturers, both local and international, have representatives at those conventions, and you can even chat with them and kind of get an idea of what they can do for you and the rates and how many games you can make, etc.
Yep.
My advice is kind of on a little different aspect of the game making, is because again, I do a lot of the concept creation, so that's kind of where my brain does a lot of stuff, is like finding a good balance between making the game that you want to make, no matter what anyone tells you, because you're going to have some people that are like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. So making the game you want to make, and at the same time, because we struggle with this a little bit in the beginning with Alkemia, remembering that you are making a game for other people to play. So you might have to let go of those mechanics that you really wanted in the game, but they're just not working in the game. So I know for us, we kind of toss them aside and say, okay, maybe this would work in a different game. So you have to, again, be willing to let go of stuff, because you are making a game for other people to play, but at the same time, stick to your guns, stick to what you want to make. If you want to make a game about, I don't know, digging a hole and filling it with water, if someone tells you that's stupid, ignore them and do it anyways. Make the game that you want to make, ultimately, because you want to make a game that you're happy with. And there's going to be so many opinions and so many voices out there telling you that you're wrong, or that it's bad, or your font's weird, or the color's weird on something. And
we've got a lot of blowback on font, it's true.
Oh, yeah.
Don't talk to us about font.
People are like, I don't want to back your game because they don't like the font. And you're like, okay.
Literally, someone said that to us.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's weird, but okay.
Yeah.
The public is fickle, but it is what it is.
Right. And
But Sorry,
And to
go ahead.
Jeff's point more, I was going to say test your games.
Play testing.
So
Mhm.
often, so many people. We didn't learn that lesson ourselves that Jeff was just talking about with Alkemia until we went to a lot more places, and especially Metatopia, and demoed these games for people and got like all that honest feedback about.
But striking a delicate balance and not taking to heart like, oh, this one person said
yes.
this, so let's change everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes you actually have to stick to your guns and go with something that someone tried to point out to you that they didn't like. You still have to go with like playtest,
Yeah.
and does it work?
Because your
And-
final game will never be what you originally had. Like Alkemia has transformed over the years dramatically. I have the original version. Oh no, I moved it. It's in the other room. I looked at it recently and I forgot how different it was.
I think
You
it's
want to sit
important.
down for 7 or 8 hours
To
to
make-
try original Alkemia.
to make one item.
Yeah. Can you make one item? You have
One
8
item.
hours.
You need to make like 6, but can you make one?
No.
I think it's important to remember as well that when people, especially strangers, playtest your games, you can learn things from them. You can get important data from them that is not their suggestions for how to make the game better. At the end of the day, it's your game. You're probably the best suited towards figuring out how to make it good. Other people only have their sensory experience. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And in many cases, they know absolutely nothing about game design. So if they say something, ooh, I want to have this or that, you can sort of listen to them, but also trust yourself a little bit. You can learn things from people like game design is a lot like sort of public space design, where, there's the famous example of if you have a crossbar on a door, everybody knows push. Nobody pulls a crossbar. That's insane. So if you go up to a door and it turns out you were supposed to pull on a crossbar, that's annoying. It's a failure in design. So if you're watching your players consistently make some wrong action as far as you're concerned when using your game, it might be that as a player, they misunderstood something. But if it keeps happening, it might be that you made some design flaw and they can't tell you what happened. They don't know. They failed at whatever it was, or they missed something. But you need to keep your eyes open and notice, like, nobody's understanding this rule that I came up with. So it's not other people's fault. I have to rewrite it. I have to change it. I have to change the way that people interact with it, whatever the case may be. So it takes a little bit of psychological sleuthing, but it's an important stage.
I think this is incredible advice. It is probably, not to disparage our previous podcast guest, probably some of the most detailed and applicable advice, not just to tabletop, but also to indie video game development that I think we've heard yet. Basically listen to your audience, but also be mindful of what your audience brings to the table.
You are the designer. You're the boss.
Yeah,
right?
you're
It's like,
you're the boss at the end.
I mean, imagine if your house guests came over for a party and you planned nothing until they arrive. It's kind of a bad move. You shouldn't do that. You should have some idea of what you want to do.
Sometimes those random parties can be kind of fun, though.
How do you know how that's how I
Well, a
plan
game
it?
jam.
That's
For the video game sorts.
Yeah.
But it starts with a common language. That's the important step. Making sure that you're speaking the same language. And a lot of times it turns out you're not. You thought you were saying the same things and you were not.
Yeah, that's incredible
That's well
advice. That's
put.
really good advice. Yeah. All right, guys. I have to say, I have loved having you all on.
Oh, it's over?
Oh, what about our in
over.
detail bios of each one?
We can include that in a write-up if you'd like. But my God, I've missed you
I
guys.
typed up 25 pages.
I've missed you guys. It's been too many years since I've seen you all, and this has been a lot of fun. And it just kind of reminds me of it actually reminds me of the night we had at FlameCon 2 in my hotel room when we were all hanging out and some of the fun conversations we've had there. So I'm glad the world's sort of kind of reopening. I hope we get to see each other in person again. Jordan, you too. It would be nice to meet
Thanks.
you in person.
You should look into Play NYC. There's literally a train will take you right there.
I
out of
mean,
the city.
I was supposed to be there as I was supposed
Sorry,
to
I said Play NYC. I'm sorry. Metatopia. You should come to Metatopia.
That's what he meant. Mhm.
Where is Metatopia?
That's in Middle
Morristown.
Morristown,
New
Morristown, New
Jersey.
Jersey.
Morristown. All right.
I do know where Morristown is. I'm gonna check that out. When is it again?
Uh,
That's really
November or something.
I want to say it's November 6th through the 10th, or
Okay.
something in that range. I'm gonna be there. Some grouping of the rest might be there as well. We're not certain yet, but I'll certainly be there.
We'll see. Yes, definitely Jordan.
Definitely.
I'm gonna look into that because it sounds like a great time.
It's really, really fun. I mean, I'm sorry, it's the best convention.
There's
love
just
it.
like
It's the best one.
walls of games to sign up for that are all testing, and that's the fun.
This room is literal pieces of paper on a huge wall, and it covers the wall of all the games, all the sign up times, everything. And
Oh, wow.
just go
And
sign
if-
up for games and play them and try.
If you have any cynicism fatigue, go to Metatopia. It's just hope. Everybody's hopeful. Everyone's excited.
Except
Everyone's
for that
making
one
games.
guy
we
whose
we
name
need
we
some
won't
hope right
mention.
now.
Oh, I'm
Other
mentioning it.
Metatopia, right?
There's some exceptions. to
There's a
that,
few
but yeah.
exceptions that we won't name.
Don't be a Gil.
Yeah, don't be a Gil.
Don't names. No names.
No names.
We can beep that out if you guys are.
He knows what
I'll
he
be
did.
sure to throw up all the information and description on it. So everyone who watches this or listens to this will have that. But again, I would love to see you guys in person again soon. It's been awesome. Thank you for doing this. And
Thank you.
It's been a great time.
You guys are a fun, creative bunch. I kind of miss the days when me and Blair had, kind of like a little crew to make kids at Karendow.
We are the crew, Gary. It's just you and I.
I know,
The two crew. That's all
Hey,
right.
it's a crew. It's
Well, I
a
hope we
crew.
get to meet you guys someday at a convention. Actually, sit down and play Alkemia or Steepseers.
Oh,
That would be
yeah.
great.
That would be
That
absolutely
would,
great.
that would be cool too.
Mhm.
Totally.
Soon. We'll make it happen. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.